Oh, you're in for a real treat now, folks. It's Fight for Life from Atari. Fight for Life was Atari's answer to Virtua Fighter, which had blown our minds with its stunning 3D visuals and kick-ass gameplay in '93. The following year, Virtua Fighter 2 was unleashed. Just breathe it in. Beautifully rendered, texture-mapped fighters beating us into submission at 60 frames per second in glorious high resolution. Even more amazing is that this is the Saturn port. I mean, wow. Virtua Fighter is a tough act to follow, but Fight for Life can't be that bad. Fuck, what am I saying? Jesus Christ. To think this game came out a year after Virtua Fighter 2 is simply mind-boggling. Believing for even a moment this held a candle to the groundbreaking efforts of Yu Suzuki is beyond my comprehension. Atari had hired Francois Bertrand, who had developed the camera and collision system for Virtua Fighters 1 and 2, to develop the game, a task that took Bertrand 18 months to complete. And why? This one man was the director, designer, and sole programmer. That's why. In his interview with Atari Gaming headquarters, Bertrand states he withheld the final game until Atari paid him what was owed. According to him, they paid. So that must mean that what you see here is the finished game, right? Well, there is an alternate version of this story in which Atari didn't pay Bertrand and released a half-finished build instead. Jaguar Sector 2 even managed a limited release of a beta which is said to look and play better than what players first experienced in 1996. Whether this beta is the actual game we were meant to play is questionable, for I haven't been able to find a credible source to back it up. Regardless, it's worth mentioning, but fuck. Okay, so what's the story? Much to my surprise, it's kinda cool. The game takes place in the Spectre Zone, which is just a fancy name for Limbo, where 8 people await final judgment. However, a mysterious figure known only as the Gatekeeper has other ideas. A fight for redemption. Win the tournament and the victor receives a second chance at life on Earth. Now that sounds interesting. Sadly, the fighters aren't all that unique. I mean, there's Ian, who reminds me of Hagar. Lun is another Bruce Lee knockoff. Kimura is supposed to be a ninja warrior, though I'd swear he was a rejected build for some Power Ranger game. Then we have Pog. Who names their kid Pog? Why not something cool like Slammer? Yeah, that sounds totally rad and 90s as fuck. God. The rest are just too bland to comment on, despite the fact they're perfectly serviceable fighters. Once you've beaten all 7 opponents, it's time to confront Junior 3 times. Now, what sets Fight for Life apart from other games of the era is that whenever you beat someone, you can add 2 of their special moves to your own. This is a neat feature, for it allows players to build their own moveset while giving them a taste of what other characters have to offer. Beyond that, this game's a mess. As hard as it tries to be Virtua Fighter, Fight for Life is lacking 4 essential ingredients: graphics, speed, control, and AI. I don't mean to shit on the visuals too much, for they do have a dated charm, but this landed a year after Virtua Fighter 2 hit arcades. The models are so simple and bland that it makes the 32X port of the original Virtua Fighter look like arcade perfection. The speed is a big problem here. You may have noticed that there's no timer. I didn't turn it off. No, it's simply not an option. If it were, I have no doubt that every match would end with a timeout. These arenas are fairly large, and your opponents like to hop away or sidestep at every turn, so rounds can go on for as long as 5 to 8 minutes. My god, it's like the fighting game equivalent of Monopoly. It just goes on forever. To be fair, once you've grown accustomed to the control and learned some moves, you will blow through the first few fighters in less time than it takes to nuke a breakfast burrito. Yeah, you see this? It looks like I'm kicking some serious ass, but it took hours of continuous gameplay to overcome the controls. The response time is not ideal, and it's a chore to play with a standard joypad. Yeah, this is a pro controller game if ever there was one. 3 of your attack buttons, along with sidestepping to either side, have been relegated to the keypad. Fucking horrendous. Pulling off a combo is damn near impossible. I couldn't bust a single move here except for the more basic stuff. Even then, it was a struggle. Take Pog's slide move, for example. I couldn't get the fucker to slide half the time. Not that it matters much later in the game, because these bastards anticipate your every move like Psycho fucking Mantis. Do I need to plug this shit into player 2? I could piss blood right now just thinking about it. Then it occurred to me that I could use this to my advantage. See how they constantly sidestep to avoid my attack even when I'm several feet away? Yeah. Now I'm playing rope-a-dope.
He's doing a what?
Rope-a-dope. Now it's a boxing term. Ali and Foreman and Zaire.
Captain, I know what the rope-a-dope is. What's your point?
I tried to beat it fair and square, though I found myself relying on this technique so often that it became downright comical. I mean, it looks ridiculous. This isn't a simple ring out. They're being electrocuted.
Ain't it cool?
When I finally made it to the final match with Junior, I had no choice but to fight dirty. Just when you think it's all over, you're treated to another round where this prick's pummeling you before you hear the announcer shout fight. Oh, but it gets better. Check out the ending. You endured all that bullshit just to lose your soul to the Prince of Lies anyway. Well, thank you very fucking much, you lowlife piece of... In the end, there's only 2 things I like about this game. 1, the music, and 2, I can turn it off. Fight for Life had some promise, without a doubt, though not enough to overlook its lousy control, horrid pacing, crippled AI, and shitty ending. Banish this survived abortion to hell and pick up Kasumi Ninja instead.